My name is Tamara Melzer-Levinson, and I am the Executive Director of the Grassroots Democrats HQ. You are joined today, and the Zoom room will be managed by several of our team members. I want to thank so much for having Davis Hahn, our Senior Strategist, here with us, Robert Jimenez, our Operations Manager, Justin Kelly, who's our Field Manager and Youth Director, and Ingrid Van Eckert, who is our VP with the Grassroots Democrats HQ. Because Judge Crawford has a very short amount of time to be with us today, we want to make sure that we give her an opportunity to be speaking to you. We're going to keep everybody on mute while she's doing that. And then think about the questions you have. We will then take a Q&A where you're going to be able to put your questions into the chat. We're going to ask them of her so that she has a chance to be answering them. And then we will be moving on after she leaves for further information about the campaign, the volunteer opportunities that you can do. And the whole time that we are here, we also want you to be thinking about that we will put in as soon as she leaves with us, how you can volunteer more to be supporting her race, how you can be donating more to be supporting winning. And right now, I'm going to turn it over to Ingrid Van Eckert, our Vice President, to do an introduction. Go ahead, Ingrid.
Hello, everyone. I am so honored to be able to introduce Judge Crawford. Thank you for being here with us. We are very excited. Judge Crawford is a common sense judge rooted in the same basic values she learned growing up in Chippewa Falls. With experience as a former prosecutor, private practice attorney, and now as a judge, she understands that we need Supreme Court justices who know what it takes to keep communities safe, who are fair and impartial, who will use common sense, and who won't politicize the Constitution in an effort to take away our most basic rights. Judge Crawford believes in doing the right thing, has fought to protect our rights and freedoms, and she will be a fair and impartial justice. Wisconsin needs that kind of justice on the state Supreme Court. For the first time in years, we have a majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court that's following the facts and following the law, and delivering on the promise of a fair and impartial justice system. We cannot risk losing that majority and having all of our progress reversed. And that is why it's important more than ever to elect Judge Crawford to the Supreme Court April 1st. Thank you, Judge, for being here with us.
Well, thank you so much, Ingrid. Really a pleasure to speak with everybody tonight. And I want to thank you all for being engaged in this race and for understanding that while this is a really important race for Wisconsin, it is not just about Wisconsin at this point. You all know that Wisconsin is a swing state. Our Wisconsin Supreme Court decides issues relating to elections, relating to voting rights, pretty much every single term, and we need to keep the current majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court to ensure that we have fair elections and that Wisconsinites can exercise their right to vote. So that is just one of many reasons why this race is important, not just in Wisconsin, but outside of Wisconsin as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit just about my background, a little bit more detail about what I bring to this candidacy. I've really spent my career fighting to do what's right for Wisconsinites and working to protect our rights in our courtrooms. So I started my career as a prosecutor at our State Department of Justice, taking cases all the way to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, fighting for the safety of our communities and making sure that victims' rights were upheld and protected in the process. Later in my career, I worked as a civil litigator representing the rights of Wisconsinites, ordinary people, public school teachers, when their rights in the workplace were taken away by the government. I worked hard with the League of Women Voters to protect the voting rights of all Wisconsinites, making sure that every eligible voter in Wisconsin can exercise their right to vote. And I represented Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin and their doctors, making sure that women were able to access healthcare services that are so necessary without their doctors facing a threat of felony prosecutions. So I'm really proud of the work that I did, both as a prosecutor and as a lawyer, working to protect our communities and to keep Wisconsinites safe and protect their rights. I am now a judge. I've been on the bench for about 6.5 years, and every day I work hard to make sure that the people in my courtrooms get a fair shake and that their rights under our laws and prosecution are protected and upheld. My approach to decision making as a judge is to always make sure I get the facts right. I think the truth is very important in our justice system, to apply the laws fairly and impartially, and to never lose sight of the fact that the parties in my courtroom are real people and they have real problems that they are looking for the court to decide. So I apply common sense and make sure that I am making decisions that um, solve those problems and protect their rights under our laws. Let me talk for a bit about my opponent, Brad Schimmel. He's a very extreme candidate, I believe the most extreme candidate to ever run for justice in the history of our state. He served previously as a Republican Attorney General. When he was in that role, he left a huge backlog of sexual assault kits untested for more than 2 years, only getting 9 kits out of over 6,000 tested. He had other priorities at the time. He was doing things like working to try to overturn the Affordable Care Act. If it had been successful, it would have resulted in tens of thousands, at least, of Wisconsinites losing their health care coverage. People with pre-existing conditions, young people on their parents' policies would have lost their health insurance if he'd been successful. He is somebody who worked hard to restrict women's reproductive health care rights, not just in Wisconsin, but he was deploying his group of lawyers to other states, working to restrict reproductive health care access in states even other than Wisconsin. And at the same time, we had the opioid epidemic raging in Wisconsin, and he failed to get Wisconsin into a national lawsuit to hold those companies that flooded our communities with addictive drugs accountable. He instead was taking campaign contributions from opioid manufacturers. So that's a little bit about his record. He continues to be very opposed to women's reproductive health care rights, even as a candidate for the Wisconsin Supreme Court, has said that he believes an 1849 law in Wisconsin that it is still on the books should be enforced as a criminal ban on pretty much all abortions. There happens to be a case right now in front of the Wisconsin Supreme Court that challenges the validity of that law. So he is taking positions on cases that are before the court, not something that judges should do. But that's Brad Schimmel. And now he has the support of the richest man in the world, Elon Musk. Elon Musk has spent to date over $10 million on Brad Schimmel's campaign. Just an extraordinary amount, and it's only going to increase in the next 18 days before the election on April 1st. So we are up against, unlimited financial resources on the other side. That means we just have to work harder. We do have a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm on our side, and spring elections in Wisconsin tend to be lower turnout. We got to find our voters and get them turned out on April 1st. So I really appreciate all of you being engaged in this race with me and understanding how very important this is. So thank you, everyone, and appreciate your support, and I'm happy to answer a few questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Davis, do me a favor as we are going through now and we are curating questions. And I'm going to go ahead and start reading them off Davis, if you see any in particular that are coming up, let me know. So number one is from Joseph Dragon. How can we or should we tie Brad Schimmel to the very unpopular policies that are happening with Donald Trump? We really appreciate how you are showing us how this race is going to affect us in the country in general. What would you like us to say on the phones?
Yeah.
And at the doors?
Well, it's an interesting question. And one of the things that we have found in Wisconsin is that Elon Musk is much less popular than Donald Trump. And people are not happy with the fact that he is getting involved in a state judicial race here. The people might feel like some of what he's doing in Washington, D.C. is okay. You know, there are a lot of people who think that the federal government could be downsized. And so that is not really where we're messaging. One of the things that we're talking about quite a bit is the fact that right at about the time that Elon Musk started getting engaged in this race, Tesla filed a lawsuit in Wisconsin that could very well end up in front of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. It has to do with dealership laws in Wisconsin, and Tesla wants to be able to sell more cars here. So he's got a financial stake, and that may be the reason that he has gotten so involved here. He's also said, of course, and he's got paid canvassers circulating flyers around Wisconsin saying that it's important to get Schimmel on the Supreme Court to protect the Trump agenda. So kind of depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to people who that is really going to resonate with, then like definitely that's your message. But you know, the fact that Elon Musk seems to be trying to buy a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court to gain access and influence over a state judiciary, another good reason.
That was really amazing. Like you gave us some new piece of information that even we who have been leading phone banks the whole time. I'm going to let Justin ask the next one because it is coming from one of our younger members in the crowd.
Right.
Well, thank you, Judge Crawford, for being here. We have a question in the chat that asks if you are doing any campaign visits and activities with young voters, such as visiting college campuses,
Yes,
places, and they also went on to say, as I'm sure you know, we really need young voters to show up, and they need to know
yes,
you and why this election is so important and how it directly impacts them.
yeah. Yes, we are. We're doing a lot of outreach to young voters. And in the next, we've got 18 days to go before the election. So we got a big barnstorming tour that includes visits to several campuses throughout the state of Wisconsin to get the students mobilized and out there voting. And we are, we're being strategic about this because a lot of campuses have their spring breaks in March. So we're working around that and making sure that we plan those visits when the students will be there and encouraging them to get out and vote early, which is an option in Wisconsin. To go right to the clerk's office or do a mail-in ballot or, depending on the municipality, there are other options for voting early. So we are really working hard to make sure that we turn out those young voters. And there are a lot of things that we can talk about to mobilize them. Things like the protection of reproductive rights is something that really resonates with people. Just generally protecting your right to make your own decisions about your own life and your own body, I think are great messages with young people. And, I think young people, along with older people, are not liking what they're seeing in Washington, D.C. or see Elon Musk doing. So there's a lot of different things that we can talk to them about.
Fantastic. We have another question here from Terry Schenkman. So we want to try to move beyond Tesla here. And despite him having the support of Musk, are the citizens in Wisconsin informed about the extreme views of what are happening? And are the polls showing them engaged because of this? What are you seeing in the polls? And can you give us that larger picture?
Yeah. Well, we have some private polling that we've been doing, and I'm not at liberty to say exactly what it's showing us, but we feel good about it. And, we've seen a lot of, kind of polling on people like Elon Musk, on Trump, on other other figures in Wisconsin, just to see sort of how that's going. And as I said, Elon Musk, very unpopular. A lot of people disapprove of him, and in particular disapprove of him wading into a state judicial race. So that's a favorable point for us. But we're liking what we're seeing, and we just need to finish strong and get out our voters. The spring elections in Wisconsin are much lower turnout than the presidential elections in the fall. So a big part of the mission here is just finding and turning out our voters.
Fantastic. Robert has a question for you regarding our field work.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can ask that question. Somebody in the chat was saying that they're coming to Wisconsin to canvass for you, and they've been talking a lot about how there's opposition commercials with false accusations.
Yeah.
They kind of wanted to see how can they debunk those false accusations, and what's the best way to handle a conversation like this at the door from one of the voters.
Yeah. Well, they should be getting material. The doors operation is mainly from the organized by the Democratic Party and the county Democratic parties. They should be getting some materials to help with that, some talking points and things like that. But sort of broadly, the attack ads really focus on like 2 cases out of thousands that I've handled as a judge. They're distorting the facts and the actual sentences in those cases. They're both cases in which I sentenced people to several years in prison, followed by several more years of supervision by the Department of Corrections, and because they're both sex offenses that they're focused on, lifetime sexual offender registration, which is just another way to make sure that there's people watching. So we also have ads out against my opponent, and have shown things like he has a history of having negotiated plea deals, and when he was a district attorney, with a lawyer who was paying him $1,000 a month in campaign contributions. His client possessed a huge collection of child pornography, and Schimmel agreed to have him plead to a single count and the minimum sentence in that case, and then left that plea deal kind of sit there until he was elected attorney general. And only then did the guy come into court and enter that plea. That allowed Brad Schimmel to continue collecting those checks. So he's got some corruption in his background, and the sexual assault kits likewise, and the opioid case likewise. Like, this is a guy who pursues right-wing causes instead of public safety. I think that's a really strong message as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a lot to say at the doors, I know.
Well,
Probably can't say
there's
all
a
that.
lot to say at the doors, and
Yeah.
we have somebody. This is very exciting, and I do also want to recognize that this is Women's History Month, and there's a power of women in the room right now, and there's a woman named Diane Kupelin. I apologize if I just pronounced the last name wrong, but she said, "I'm coming from MD, Maryland." To canvass in Wisconsin on March 20th. My cousin in Madison tells me that the opposition has lots of TV commercials with false accusations against you. She also said that your commercials in the Madison area may not all be debunking these. Can you please speak to us about the best way to be talking about that, and like, and why
this is really it's really the same answer I just gave to the previous question. We are not running ads in which we're going to go through a point-by-point explanation of those cases. It is not worth the money, and it's not effective. So we're not doing that. We are counterattacking and showing where Brad Schimmel is weak on crime, because he is, and he's got a history of corruption and putting other priorities before public safety, like taking healthcare away from people and trying to take abortion rights away from women. So I think those are the points to counter that. And also just that, like, they're attacking me on 2 cases that involved prison sentences.
Thank you. It's really
You're
important
welcome.
for us to understand because we want to carry your
Yeah.
message forward. And we have
Yes.
so many people doing this. We have to keep reemphasizing, guys, this is the same thing as when we're talking to voters. We tell the voters the information, then we tell it to them again, and then we find another way of getting that point across. So thank you very
Yeah.
much. Davis, I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can ask the next question that we have.
Yeah, I think that just to summarize a few questions that we've seen pop up in the chat, folks seem to be wondering what work is your campaign doing to reach out to historically marginalized communities across the
Oh,
state?
yeah. Wow.
And how can volunteers help with that if they want to?
Yeah. I'm not sure on the question of how volunteers can help with that specifically. That's something that I would have to consult with my campaign team about. But in terms of my own personal work and outreach, I've done a lot of media with, for example, the Black community in Milwaukee. I just did a radio show, yesterday, I think it was. The days blend together, but I believe it was yesterday. Great interview that went on a gospel station in Milwaukee. I have been doing church visits, another great way to connect with people. We've done some outreach to the Native American tribes in Wisconsin, another, kind of key population here, voting population, and have done outreach to the Latino communities here as well. So, we're really trying to make sure that we reach out broadly to, all of the different communities that are in Wisconsin.
Fantastic. Okay. I'm going to add myself back in. So Davis, I think that we have pretty much done all of the questions. Also, I want to honor the time that we have for Judge Crawford to be here. And so what I am going to do, Judge Crawford, is I just want to say before we have you take a photo with everybody and have to leave, because we really appreciate your time, is there anything that you would want to add in to let people know before we take a group photo and then you have to go off to your next meeting?
I just would like to reiterate how important it is to make the voter-to-voter contacts in a race like this. The turnout in this race, even, I think it'll be high turnout for a spring election, but it'll still be probably somewhere around maybe 55% of the turnout that we saw in November. That is just the way it is in the spring in Wisconsin. So the more we can reach out and connect with voters and help them to understand the stakes of this election and why they need to get out to vote. And I'm talking to people who would be inclined to vote for me, not, trying to persuade somebody who's like on the far right. Just getting our voters to the polls and making sure that their vote counts, I think, is a very key part of the mission here over the next 18 days.
I want to thank you so much for coming and being with us. And while you're still here, and everybody who is actually in this room, there's 110 people on a Friday evening that know that this is such an important race that they've all come out. Everybody, we're going to keep putting links into the chat. We're going to keep on going on, but we want you to sign up, find ways of supporting Judge Susan Crawford, and do me a favor right now. And if you have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, it was a happy hour, lift it up, and we're going to take a picture with you, and we're going to say thank you so much for being here. So Davis, can you do the honors of doing a screenshot for us?
I'd be happy.
Fantastic.
All right. We're gonna have to take a few pictures here because there are so many of us on this call. So everyone go ahead and smile in 3, 2, 1. This is take 1. Thank you. All right, now I'm going to the next screen in 3, 2, 1. All right, we're gonna do, it looks like one more in 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Judge, for joining us, and we will be doing our part to help you make it all the way to the bench and beyond. Thank you so much for what you are doing with us.
Oh, thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to share with you today.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks
Okay.
for
My
all the
camera
work
is
you're
not
doing.
working, so
How incredible was that? I don't know about you, but all of you who are phone banking, all of you who are door knocking, everybody that is doing something right now, thank you very, very much. We're going to put links into the chat as we are turning this over to Davis Hahn. Davis is going to give us a little bit more of a recap of some opportunities. Then we're going to talk to you about as well. Robert is going to tell you how you can volunteer with us. And I'm going to let you know that whether you're volunteering or not, if you can take that link in the chat and make a contribution today, 50% of those funds are going to go to be going directly to Judge Crawford's campaign. 50% are going to come to the Grassroots Democrats HQ for the ongoing 5 times a week that we've been phone banking. We have a youth program that we are running. Please keep on giving and please keep on volunteering. Davis, what else do you want to let us know?
Well, if I could get or I guess I can also open it on my computer. Give me 1 second. But we're just gonna go over a
Justin actually has it for you, I think.
Oh,
There you
great. Thank you. All right, we're going to go over a brief recap of our Tuesday night happy hour, which was part 1 of our happy hour series. We had the chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin with us, Ben Wickler, just talking a little bit about the stakes of this race. And I'm just going to put a quick disclaimer here that Judge Crawford is running for a nonpartisan office. She can't talk about some of the political issues that are implicated here. So anything that I say after this point, this is a statement of the Grassroots Democrats HQ. It is not a statement coming from Judge Crawford's campaign. But wanted to talk a little bit about the stakes that are tied to this race. So just quickly, how did we get here? A lot of you might remember that back in 2023, we did a ton of work electing Janet Protasewicz to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. That was the first time in 15 years that we flipped the court from a conservative to a liberal majority. We were very proud to have contacted almost 500,000 voters in that race. And next slide, please. That race resulted into some very tangible victories for us in Wisconsin right away. Number one, the new liberal majority on the court struck down the most egregiously gerrymandered state legislative maps in the country. And that led to Democrats gaining a ton of seats last year. They almost took back the majorities in both houses of the Wisconsin state legislature, and they're going to have a chance to win back those majorities next year because of that ruling. Also, the court struck down what was previously a ban on drop boxes for absentee ballots in the state. We know that this is very important for keeping voter turnout high. And just an example, we all know we're living through it now. Elections have consequences. These are just examples of why you should care about these elections, but those consequences go outside of state lines. So if I could get the next slide, please. There are a number of reasons why you should care about this race right now. In Wisconsin, currently, there is a case pending before the court. Judge Crawford was not allowed to talk about cases that she might have to rule on as a justice for ethics reasons. That is totally understandable. But just so you know, when you are talking to voters, there's a case before the court right now where they're going to have to decide whether a law that's currently on the books from 1849 totally bans all abortions in the state with no exceptions. That is what the conservative candidate believes. That's what the 3 conservative justices currently on the court believe. The 4 liberal justices right now on the court want to keep abortion in the state legal, and they think that's consistent with their state constitution. That's obviously what we believe. That I'm sure that is what Judge Crawford would likely decide if she gets the opportunity to be the 4th swing vote that will determine the outcome on this case. And next slide, please. But the outcome, the results of this election will not just have an impact on those of us living in Wisconsin. Everyone in all 50 states of the country should care about the results of this race. Why? Well, let's go back to 2022. And what you're seeing on the screen is the former House map in North Carolina. And that House map had 7 Democratic districts and 7 Republican districts. And then in 2022, Republicans flipped the state Supreme Court in North Carolina to a conservative majority. And next slide, please. This is what happened after that. They redrew the map to 11 Republican seats versus 3 Democratic seats in a state that we know is pretty much 50-50. Next slide, please. Those 4 Democratic seats that they eliminated are the only reason right now that Republicans have a majority in the House of Representatives. They have a 3-seat majority, only because of that state Supreme Court race. So next slide. In Wisconsin, currently, the Supreme Court struck down their state legislative maps. They still have a pretty egregious gerrymander at the congressional level. As you can see at the bottom of your screen right now, we know Wisconsin is the canonical swing state. It is pretty much 50-50 every election. Joe Biden won the state by less than a percentage point. Donald Trump won the state by less than a percentage point in this most recent election. It is a true 50-50 state. Tony Evers in 2022 won re-election by 1 point on the Democratic side. In the same election, Ron Johnson, horrible Republican senator, won re-election by 1 point. This is a 50-50 state. If you look on your screen at the House results in 2024, that does not look like what congressional districts in a 50-50 state should look like. Those are districts that were purposely drawn to give Republicans 6 seats guaranteed no matter what, out of 8, 75% of seats, no matter what happens in a state that is 50-50. So this race could very well help determine whether or not we can take back the House in 2026. Because if we maintain our liberal majority on the court, there are interest groups right now, and interest groups in the positive sense, not voting rights nonprofit organizations that are waiting to see the outcome of this race before they decide whether they're going to invest significant resources in trying to strike down the current congressional maps in Wisconsin and get the maps redrawn to be something that is fair and actually represents the will of the voters in the state. So we can help to undo some of the damage that was done by us losing that Supreme Court race in North Carolina if we win this race on April 1st, keep our majority on the court, and ensure that we can keep fighting for voting rights in Wisconsin. So that's just a brief overview of some of the things that we talked about with Ben Wickler on Tuesday night. Now I'm going to turn it over, I believe, to Robert Jimenez, because I hope that after hearing all that, you're really motivated to get involved on this campaign over the next 2 weeks, and Robert's going to tell you how you can do that.
All right, so hi everybody. Thank you, Davis, for that amazing analysis, and I'm sure you guys are very motivated after hearing Judge Crawford speak. I want to talk to you guys a bit about how you can get involved and turn this into actual action in the last 18 days. So on Mondays, you can join the HQ and Jewish Democratic Council of America phone bank every single week until Election Day. The HQ has a phone bank on Zoom on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Sundays, and if you can't make any of those days, we also have a phone bank now option. You could find that in the link tree in the chat right now. You could call anytime during it's like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Central Time. And then if you are local to Los Angeles, we're hosting an in-person phone bank here. You could also find that link in that link tree in the chat. So you could volunteer virtually, or you could do so in person here in Los Angeles. And then I'll talk a bit more on the next slide. And then if you want to join some youth-led opportunities, we have a really special opportunity on Tuesday on the 18th at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We are very lucky to have DNC Chair, Vice Chair Malcolm Pinata joining us for this youth-led phone bank. Anybody could join. This is not just for youth. So it'll be a really great phone bank. Hope you guys can join us. Justin, our youth vote coordinator and field manager, is going to put that into the chat so you guys can sign up. And then if you'd like to join a youth phone bank, we also have that every single Tuesday, 4 p.m. PT, 7 p.m. ET. So I hope you guys look at those links in the chat, sign up for something. There's only 18 more days. There's still a few more days to do postcarding, but now is the time to start switching over to the phones. So I'll pass it back over to Tamara.
Hello, everyone. So I get to close us off tonight for this wonderful happy hour. I want to first of all thank you all for being here. We had about 120 people who came on a Friday night to be able to talk about an important race. What I'm going to let you know is we're watching, and there's a ton of people that are signing up for more shifts. Starting next week, volunteer-wise, we're also going to be starting our challenge, which is called 20 Dials, 20 minutes a day. So if you know how to phone bank, you'll be able to go right onto our website. We keep maintaining all those links. We keep maintaining an information library so you know exactly what to tell voters on all the FAQs for this race. But what do we need? Dollars also make a huge difference. The link that we're putting into the chat right now is a 50-50 split between Judge Crawford for the Supreme Court fund, as well as the Grassroots Democrats HQ. We are a year-round evergreen organization. I want you to know that if you could please help us support the work that we are doing, it will ensure that we are here through Wisconsin on April 1st, and then we will be moving right into the Virginia House of Delegates, the Virginia governor's race, and then continuing, because what are we doing? We are laying the groundwork to take back Congress in 2026, and then to keep on going from there. Everybody that is here, you can just raise your hand for 1 second. How many of us are scared about what's actually happening in our country right now? Yeah. And what you are doing by caring about this particular race is you're caring about what I'm considering each step that we need to take to be saving our democracy. For those of you that are choosing to go out there and protest, you're choosing to go out there to be showing your voice. I was just at the women's march. I believed that I needed to be out there marching, but I'm going to tell you, in addition to showing our voices by yelling, by getting upset, by putting our feet to the ground and marching and demonstrating, we cannot lose sight of elections. Elections will never be won by protesting. Protesting has its part out there. I am not telling you not to do that, but I'm telling you to donate, to make phone calls. You know what other phone calls we're doing? We are one of the few organizations out there that is investing in the phone banking with the Wisconsin Democratic Party to be recruiting volunteers. And when we call them, we are signing them up for shifts to go out and canvass, because the face-to-face door knocking that takes place when you get to talk about what Judge Crawford stands for to a voter, and you get to talk to them about what they care about, that phone call and that door knock will make all the difference.